But the most important thing is that we are all one, that if I do something to you, I actually do it to myself. So you change your life in the way that you think twice before you do something. And also towards nature. Nature is very important.
So after compiling hundreds of NDE accounts, what truth shows up so consistently that it becomes impossible to ignore?
Our lives are short. It's just over within a second. Time doesn't have a meaning on the other side. I don't know how to see that or how to explain that, but that's what people say. There is no time on the other side, and I love this one best. It's time is all there at the same time. So time is there all at the same time.
Because what would happen is that their curiosity to try to prove it physically would probably bring breakthroughs in medicine, science, research, even going as far as like energy in terms of levitation, all these kind of things, because we're talking with things not from this world. And I think they're the right people to actually say, hey, even though we're doctors and scientists and engineers, etc., here's the proof to back up these wild claims, because I think they're well placed for it. Hey Conscious Man 7 family, quick question before we start. Do you love the depth of these conversations but hate when ads break the flow? I get it. Ads can feel like speed bumps on a highway, pulling you out of that deep zone. That's why we created a way for you to enjoy every episode completely ad-free while supporting the show at the same time. For just a few bucks a month on Patreon or Locals, you'll get full access to uninterrupted episodes. You'll get direct access to me so you can ask me any questions that you have, some cool other perks like early releases, and you'll also help us keep bringing you the powerful conversations that mainstream platforms won't touch. The link is in the show notes. Join us there and be part of this movement. Ever look up and see those dull, grey skies streaked with chemtrails, and you feel your energy sink? You're not imagining it. Something in you knows the sky isn't supposed to look that way. But what if you could bring back the blue? What if there was a way to clear the air inside you and above you? That's where the Chembo comes in. They create powerful orgonite, tools that generate orgone energy, the life force that helps neutralize EMFs from your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi, and even 5G. It's nature's way of restoring balance, bringing cleaner air, calmer energy, and deeper sleep. Every piece from the Chembo is handmade, from tactical tower busters to beautiful pyramids and jewelry, crafted with the precise ingredients to generate real orgone energy. And here's the best part. They've proven it. For over 10 years, they've cleared thousands of miles of chemtrails, bringing the blue back to the skies around the world. So if you're ready to take back your weather and your well-being, go to thechembo.com. Use coupon code CM7 for 10% off and experience the shift for yourself. Don't fear the chemtrails or the EMF. Be empowered with the Chembo and never feel helpless again. If you are new to this podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and to share, because that helps us to be recommended in the algorithms. If you would like to support this podcast, please check out our merch store on Amazon with the brand Todd and Me. We've got some cool t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and sweaters. Link will be in the description of this podcast. And if you're now starting a spiritual journey, you would like to start a spiritual journey, or you're currently on a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, please hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 and it will help you to get some magic mushrooms. Enjoy the show and stay tuned, because we have some more great content coming soon. What if death isn't the end, and the greatest mistake humanity is making is how we're living because we believe it is? What if the moment we fear most, death, is actually the moment everything finally makes sense? What if consciousness doesn't die, but the way we've been living does? Hello friends, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. I am your host Todd Cave, and today's conversation challenges one of the deepest assumptions of modern society, that the brain creates consciousness, that love is conditional, and that death is the end of the story. My guest is Robert Christopher Copez, scientist, former banker, author of Impressions of Near-Death Experiences, and board member of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. For decades, Bob has studied hundreds of first-hand near-death accounts from people who were clinically dead and came back with the same message: not judgment, not punishment, love, unity, interconnection. In this episode, we explore what near-death experiences reveal about consciousness beyond the body, life reviews, fear, purpose, and why so many people return saying, "We were loving the wrong things and in the wrong way." This is not about believing anything. It's about questioning everything.
When truth is blurred by lies and misinformation, perception becomes reality. What will you perceive your reality to be?
Liberate your fears and walk with me.
Sit down and meditate. Connect with your soul.
Be a monster and then learn how to control it.
You gotta be willing to do the work.
So it really goes really deep in terms of words and etymology and what they mean. So this is why it is really hard to really crack the matrix, because there's so many levels and layers to it, Bob, welcome to the Conscious Man 7 podcast. How are you today?
Wow, what an introduction. Very nice. And thank you very much for having me on your show.
Yes, Bob, I am interested to talk to you today because on my show, we've talked about many different topics: consciousness, spirituality, extraterrestrials, religion. But there's one thing that I've always said is that, death is something that I think is very much misunderstood. And I also say in my private circle that no one has ever died and come back and told us exactly what it is. But the closest thing we can get to that is near-death experiences. So for me, this conversation is very intriguing because as we were talking off camera, I've done a lot of psychedelics and I've had out-of-body experiences. I've traveled, I have downloaded stuff, I've seen past lives. And people would say, well, Todd, that was just you hallucinating. But the thing is with you is that you've documented hundreds of cases with people having almost the same experience, reporting the same things, which tells me that there's something that is very much misunderstood about life here on Earth, who we are, what we are, where we've come from. And they're questions that we just don't seem to answer. And I think that maybe a conversation like this can maybe answer some of those questions, or maybe ask ourselves other questions that we've never asked ourselves, right? So I'm really interested to talk with you. And this is the first kind of this type of a conversation we're going to have on the show. So, welcome to the show and let's get right into it.
So I'm the first one to talk about near-death experiences.
Yeah,
very nice.
Yeah, the first one. So this is why I was okay, you know what? This is something that I can learn from, because I like to have conversations with people, even if I don't agree with their point of view, but I am a seeker of knowledge. And I am always saying, okay, even if I don't agree with something, I'm going to put that thing on the shelf. But I want to hear the point of view of the other person, because in my ignorance, which is not knowing of something, I possibly can learn something. And this is my approach to how I do the podcast, how I live my life, or how I interact with people, because I don't dismiss anything anymore, because the only thing that's absolute is that one day we're going to leave this body, and that is the most absolute thing that we have, And you document a phenomenon that is one of those absolutes where, there's a stage before it. So for me, I want to, learn some things and maybe provoke some thoughts, in my listeners and stuff like that, So you were trained to trust numbers, models, and measurable outcomes. Yet you devoted decades to studying experiences science struggled to explain. what broke your old worldview and set you on this path?
Well, it was both. When I was young, when I was in my 20s, I was very much interested in spirituality, but I was at the same time studying economics at the university in the Netherlands. So yeah, that's it can work together. And my interest in near-death experiences started later. That was when I read the book written by Raymond Moody. And Raymond Moody is the guy, a doctor in the United States, who coined the term near-death experiences because he wrote this book about it. And for the first time, people could read these cases. And since in his practice, there were only people who had died almost and had this kind of experience, he called it near-death experience. But we know now that that's actually not the right term, because you can have a near-death experience under different circumstances. So you don't have to be close to death or almost death or clinically death in order to have such an experience. It is it can happen under all kinds of circumstances. Most of the time, it's when people have a medical critical situation, when they have a cardiac arrest, for instance, or when they have an accident, or when they are in an operation. But also cases where, well, people have had such an experience when they had a very traumatic experience, or when they were psychologically in a very deep downturn. Also, when people had were praying or had meditated. And very rarely there were cases where people had such an experience just spontaneously. I know of a few, and it's really strange, but the world is strange, I think. So yeah, those cases exist. And a near-death experience is a very overwhelming and very extraordinary experience where people say they have been on the other side of life. So you said no one has ever come back from death. Well, these people say they have come back from death. And of course, as a scientist, we cannot say that that's the final thing, because no one came back from the final death. So these people were drawn back from just before they were dying or so. So it's not real death, but they say they know absolutely sure they had died. So I take their word for that.
Yeah, it's a real fascinating phenomenon, because you hear about a lot of people who've like had completely different paradigm shifts, changed their ways. You know, they went on like become healthier, stopped drinking, became more loving to family, friends, and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of these things are quite common. And it's true, we can't prove that they had a near-death experience, but it was so profound that it shifted their paradigm. And
yes,
the stories are quite similar, you know?
Yes.
So you've spoken about how your brother's death played a pivotal role in your journey. How did grief transform into inquiry and eventually into decades of research?
Well, actually, before my brother died of AIDS, and that was in 93. But before that, we had already together, we spoke about near-death experiences, and I was looking into them because the book from Raymond Moody was published in 1975. So that was like a number of years before he passed away. And I had been reading about near-death experiences already. And yeah, so we spoke about it. But his passing away was, was a sad thing in my life. I can tell you, it was something that really stuck with me at that moment. And I still remember him, of course. And I sometimes sort of speak with him. But what changed in me was that I was told, it's strange to say, but I was told by a voice or something when I was driving back from the funeral that I had to write his story down. And I did that eventually after not wanting to do it, and then hearing some kind of same sort of voice again in my head telling me the chapters, telling me how to write it, what the scenes were, everything of these kind of things. And then after the second time, I thought, well, okay, I'll try. I'll try to interview the people that were surrounding him. And then eventually it became a book. So that made me start writing. But that evolved from writing about him to doing my research on NDEs more profoundly, and then comparing those with religions. So the 5 major religions that are around, and that went out of hand. So I decided to put that in a book. And astonishingly, there was a publisher who wanted to publish it. So that was good.
Wow. You know, you spoke about hearing the voice, and I can testament that I do hear a voice as well. So from talking to people, I have learned that I am clairaudient because of the voice. And this podcast was born because of a voice, or the voice, as I call it. It just woke me out of my sleep and said 2 words 3 times: do podcasts, do podcasts, do podcasts.
Nice.
So I can affirm that what you're saying about the voice isn't something that is made up, because I find that a lot of times the things that
Did you do that immediately? Did you immediately jump up and do this podcast, or did you hesitate first, like I did, for 2 days, and then I heard the voice again?
So in my case, when I heard it, I immediately started to make plans to do it, because...
Oh, wow. You're a good listener. You listen well.
Well, the thing is that I was at a point where I was just like frustrated, and I had come to my tether's end in terms of where it was mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to do it, because when you get to a breaking point, at least for me, and I've heard from talking to many other guests, that when you get to the breaking point where you no longer recognize yourself and you're just told, do this, or you see the vision, you just do it out of sheer like frustration of what is happening, you know, just to have a change, because what you were doing before wasn't working. So I immediately got up and I started to make plans, and I started to make moves from the same day. And then I think it was like 2 weeks later, I launched my first episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Well, the book writing for me took like half a year, and then it was done. That was nice.
But that's not a long time at all, you know, half a year to write a book.
It was very quick. It was very quick. Yeah. But I must say I was helped. I felt help there from the other side. So probably my brother was helping me, which I know for sure, because there was another incident when I was in Japan doing my last interview. He sort of showed up. I didn't see him though, but I realized that was the last interview, and he was coming to say goodbye to me, something like that. He said, it sounds strange, but it's like, you don't hear the words, you know the message. And that is also how near-death experiencers say they have their conversations. It's not with words. It's not, you don't see lips move because on the other side, you don't have any lips anymore. It's like a telepathic communication that is so immediate and so complete. And the words don't get in the way because because you don't use words, you know, you use the concepts or the real idea. And it's also what they say, and that's why I can relate to it that very well, is that it's actually in your own head. well, you don't have a head there, but it's like, some people say they hear their own voice. It seems like there's their own voice. Oftentimes it's another voice, but it's the voice that they hear in themselves, in what they are. So they have some substance or something there, no body, but there's this spirit, and in their spirit head, or however you want to see it, I don't know, they hear this conversation, they hear the voice. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. In my case, it is my own voice. So this is why I know it's me. So it's a very interesting experience, which is in the word, the experience, because you can, no one can believe you, or you can give any evidence to show it's real, because it's something you have to go through. You know, it's like you can make a cake and eat it and say how lovely it is, but unless the person eats the cake, they would never understand how good it tastes. So it's something that you have to experience, you know?
Yes.
So before writing Impressions of Near-Death Experiences, what was your personal stance on death and consciousness, and how did that change over time?
I was brought up Roman Catholic, and that was with hell and purgatory, and I didn't believe that part, but I believed and I felt that there was another, well, I don't know how you call it. My parents called it heaven, and that we would go there if we would be nice. And then I thought, yeah, that's how I feel it. So yeah, we go there. But hell and purgatory, that was something that I didn't like at all. And I thought, not only that I didn't like it, but it was also that I thought it was not correct. So what I found out in the book written by Raymond Moody is that there was a woman having her life review. And in a life review, you can see whatever you did in your life, and it comes in different ways. Some people see it like a film, some see it in images, and you can zoom into specific details, but you can also have an overview. But in her case, she said something like, there was no one judging me. The light was there, and saw all the things that I did, the nice things, but also the not so nice things. But there was no judgment. The light didn't say what I did wrong, or didn't bring the Bible there, or the Quran, or anything. And then I thought, that's how it is. That's how I feel it as well. There is no judgment. We all go to that wonderful place. So so there's no hell and purgatory, in my opinion. And after speaking with so many people about near-death experiences, I don't believe anymore that there is a hell or a purgatory or anything. There's only this otherworldly environment that we will all go to, because it's where the source is, and we are from the source. So we go back to the source. There's nowhere else to go to. It's the only place we can go to. That's how I see it.
So that's interesting. So you've said you don't see NDEs as subjects, but as teachers. Why did you choose to listen rather than interpret or explain aware their experiences?
Well, they have been on the other side. I haven't been there. They tell their stories. It is as if, suppose that we are talking about New York City or so, and I haven't been there, and I speak to people that have been in New York City and talk about New York City. Why should I tell them how New York City is? That's strange. So I haven't been on the other side. I haven't had an NDE myself. And so I listen. But the way I listen is that I look through all these stories that I have, and not one story is the same as another. It's not like a tick box exercise where you have to have a tunnel experience, you have to have light beings, or talking with a light, or a life review. Some people don't have a life review. Some people don't fly through a tunnel. So every story is different. But if you look through, that makes it more difficult, and more challenging. But if you look through all these stories, there are a few items that remain. And that is unconditional love. That's important. Also, the fact that we are all very closely interconnected with each other, to the point where one can also say that we are one. And more than that, you cannot really say. So I stick to these two things, and the fact that we don't die. I mean, we die, our body dies, but our consciousness does not die. We are eternal.
So I'm curious. So like, when you hear people like Dolores Cannon and then other people, they mention that when you have maybe your life review, or maybe the soul hasn't grown or learned, you reincarnate here to pass the test of time because the soul only wants to grow. So from your experience then, what is your take on things like concepts like that, like what Dolores Cannon said and other people have said in your research?
Yeah, so then you're talking about reincarnation and learning, the purpose of life is learning. Well, I don't go that far. I don't rule out that it's like that, but I don't know it. And I don't think it is like they say. And I have to explain that because, I always say to people, if someone says they know exactly how it is on the other side, then the only thing you can do is run away quickly, because I don't think that's possible. The only thing that's possible is to talk about what they really see, and that's consistent. That's unconditional love for everyone, and that we are very much connected, and that the universe is very much connected. And there are stories of NDEs that say that we all come from one source, or that we are all God. And then if there is only one, then why would that one leads every life. And that source is within you, it's within me, and within all the listeners. So why would the source want to, it leads all lives already. So what is the idea behind reincarnation then? It's just a question. I don't know. And then learning, why would we need to learn anything? Because if we are from the source, we already are divine. We already have all the knowledge there. So there's nothing to learn. And what I understand from NDEs, what they say the purpose of life is it's different. It's just to experience life. That is something that I hear so often. Experiencing life is very important. It is very much fun as well. It's also the idea that it's fun to experience life. And if I say that, I know that there are a lot of people that are in pain or that are in distress. But still, the other side is more real than where we are now. So seen from the other side is having your life's experience is just thrilling. And to give you an example of what someone said to me, I was at a conference one day and I was talking in the same way, in this way that I thought we are here on earth to learn, because that's what I hear all the time. And then they said, no, why would we need to learn? We know everything already. We have the pure love within us. We just need to express that. And then they said, it is like God went to the cinema. God just wanted to have an experience of life. So because on the other side, it's kind of everything is nice. It's hunky-dory. Everything is wonderful. So God wanted to just experience what it is to be in a more limited environment. And then he went to the movies to see it all. That's the picture they gave me. And I thought that was kind of nice. And I tend to believe that because I really believe that we all know everything. Also, people that we can always think of people, politicians, preferably, that have done terrible things. There are wars going on at this moment. You just have to think of some of the people that just keep on going in these wars. Also, these people know about perfect love because they are from the source, but their view has been limited because of their nature. Maybe their genes are in the way, or their upbringing. Maybe they are taught to do things like that by their parents or by the military where they were in, or by the schools, or maybe they never had a good role model, something like that.
That's a very
I see
interesting.
You smiling.
That's a very interesting concept, and I am willing to put that on the shelf because personally, I have connected to past lives, so I know that I have reincarnated here a few times. But
can I ask you a question there? Because you have seen past lives,
yes.
Correct? I believe because there are also stories from people that feel that, and they give evidence, and that evidence is true because they go to the place where these previous people lived, and they find these things, they find the address, I don't know, things like that. Though there are stories, multiple stories about that. So I think those lives have been there. I believe that because I see the proof. Okay, but my question is it your life? Because the question is, who are you? Are you, when you reincarnate, is your ego, because that's who you are, who I am, your personality, is that going from one body to the other? I wonder. And I think that's too simple to see it because, again, we are from the source.
That's fascinating. And this is why, I have more questions than definitive answers because
I don't have answers too. I just tell you that I believe these stories about people that know their past lives. I'm sure those past lives have been there. But the question is, can't we just all tap into all that knowledge if we are part of the source? If we are part of the source, then we can tap into that information.
Yeah, which is why I think it's fascinating, which is why I said I'm going to put that on the shelf, because for me now is kind of like, okay, that explanation sounds very interesting where, yes, I understand that we come from the source is in us, we are it, and it is us. But then the thought provocation that you made in terms of, well, if source just went to the movies to have to watch the film of all the experiences, then there's no other place but to go back to. So why would we need to learn? So it's kind of like having cognitive dissonance at the same time where I actually even have more questions now on terms of that's a very interesting thought experiment where I never looked at it from that side before. And
can I just give you an example of one of the quotes in my book? I just fleshing out my book here is the impressions of near-death experiences, with quotations from hundreds of NDEs, and there are hundreds of quotes there. One of them I'm just going to tell you now. So it's this woman is having her near-death experience. So she leaves her body. The first emotion she has is, wow, that's wonderful, because I don't feel my body. I don't feel the anxiety. I don't feel pain. Moreover, I feel freedom. So if your body is really confining and you don't know that when you're really in the body, well, you might have experiences like that from your psychedelics. But so if you leave your body, it's like liberation. And then the next phase she was going into, and she said this, let me remember how it was, something like, but the next phase was something like I was going to a place where I was diluted. Is that the word? Delusion?
Deluded.
You dilute into this oneness, into the Godhead. She mentioned the word Godhead. So you dilute into God. So, and then she says, so my consciousness was gone as well.
Wow.
So that really goes far. So because, and there are other people that say, you know, if I would have stayed longer, would I just, or because sometimes people see a boundary like a little creek or a wall or curtains or a fog, and they were told not to go there. They shouldn't cross it, because if they cross, then I think they cannot come back again. That's definite. So then they also ask themselves, if I would have done that, would I be still myself? Wouldn't I just be diluted into the big ocean? That's another person who said that I was like a drop in the ocean again, and I was diluted in the ocean, something like that, she said. So that's you become the ocean again.
Very fascinating. Very
part
fascinating.
of the ocean.
Yeah. So, as a former banker and scientist, what was the hardest internal resistance you had to overcome when taking NDEs seriously?
Actually, nothing, because it sounds strange, but I must say that I have been also in a kind of a split, because on the one hand, I was very much interested into spirituality and especially into near-death experiences. On the other hand, I was doing things in financial world. I had to manage. I was involved in billions of euros, and those were just numbers. And for me at the time, I still, and it is strange to be on both sides, being spiritual and being in finance. But it was my job. So, what I got from my interest in NDEs is that I have a different perspective of life. Interestingly, a friend of mine asked me a half year ago, why are you so preoccupied with death? And then I had to think about that. And then I thought suddenly this is the answer, because I'm not really interested in death. I'm interested in life. Because what I learned from near-death experiences is not, that death is not final, but the most important thing is that we are all one, that if I do something to you, I actually do it to myself. So you change your life in the way that you think twice before you do something. And also towards nature. Nature is very important, and other people are very important. So I had this other view of life. And if you talk with people who are in finance, they notice that. So they always thought, well, Bob is a little bit strange. He's nice anyway. But I think I touched them by who I was. I don't have to tell them what I was doing. As we all touch people, I touched them too. So, and I hope I just gave the right ripple there.
Well, yeah, the thing is that what I realize is that when you change as a person, your environment changes and the people react to you differently. So because you were of that way, then the way they interacted with you would be different from how they interact with other people, because your energetic frequency would automatically be felt. So this is why I always say to people that you become the thing that you want to be, and your world will change around you, because you will show up in a different way. It will be felt, it will be seen, it will be heard, and you will have a different reaction from someone that is different from you, even if they're in the same situation as you. So
you attract others, you attract other kind of people.
Correct. So
and you push away a certain kind of people because you changed. It's like magnets.
Yes, definitely. And you know, the thing is, I would say that is a little bit of nuance where it's not that you push away, but they're just not attracted to you.
Yeah.
Because there's no resonance anymore.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
but that happens to NDEs oftentimes, actually all the times, because you have to understand they experience something very strange. I mean, it's really extraordinary, and it's a life event where they've seen unconditional love, and then when they come back, they don't like this life here. They don't like the world because it's not there. They cannot find the colors here. They cannot find the sounds here. This is so dull here. It's a shadow compared to the other side. So they want to go back. They have homesickness. But what happens to them is that they change. They have been touched by the light, and it doesn't make them saints. I want to stress that very well. But because they changed, they will see that their surrounding changes, like you said. And what happens oftentimes is that their relation with their wife or their husband changes, and there are a lot of separations and divorces. But that's how it is. It's like your wife or your husband won't recognize you anymore because you have changed, because you became less interested in money and power, and more interested in being together with other people, with nature, and with animals. And so those are some of the very big changes that people experience when they have had such an experience as a near-death experience.
Wow, fascinating. So after compiling hundreds of NDE accounts, what truth shows up so consistently that it becomes impossible to ignore?
Unconditional love. That's the number one thing that people say. And also the fact that they know that life is not ending. I don't know how to say it, but death is not the end. That's how I want to say it. So if people die, it's only their body that dies. The essence, so the spirit, or I call it the source that is in everyone, will continue. It's indestructible, and it's the divine core. It's the unconditional love that is in each of and every one of us. That's how I see it. But life goes on, and unconditional love is on the other side waiting for us. But it's also very important on this side. The thing is that I don't want to say should or must, but we should try to increase that. And if I can give you one other quote there from
Sure.
I like that so much. There's this little girl, Christina, 8 years old. She was playing outside, but she was abducted by two men, and they tried to drown her. And then she saw from under the water, she looked up and saw the sun above her, and also the guy, of course. And then she had her life review, and she survived all this because her father came rushing towards her because she was screaming before they tried to drown her. But she went through a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, there was this elderly guy. And she said, she's 8 years old. She said, couldn't have been anyone else than God. And God gave me a recipe for life. And the recipe is consisting out of only 4 ingredients. And it's love, be loved, just be, and experience life. Now here you have the things that I just mentioned. It's love and be loved. So love is very important. And just be and experience life. That's God going to the cinemas.
What is fascinating is that she was 8 years old, and she could make statements like that one would think would be coming from an adult. So it can't be coming from her specifically, because I mean, that's a little bit higher of a mind than an 8-year-old. I'm just playing devil's advocate to say that she would make it up, because what she's saying is not something of this world. That is not a message of this world, you know? So
yeah, you couldn't have thought that before that. So
No.
yeah, for 8 years, that's it.
So your book repeatedly points to unconditional love as the central takeaway. How do experiencers describe that love in ways that words struggle to capture?
Well, that's the difficult part. They don't know how to express that. Words fall short of anything, what they really felt on the other side. They say it is ineffable what they have experienced, and they struggle with explaining it. And sometimes people just fall silent because they don't know how to express it. So, and especially the unconditional love on the other side. And I use that word, or those words, unconditional love, very easily in my presentations. But I know, for instance, Anita Marjani said that once. She said, the real thing is much bigger than just those two words. Those two words don't capture the real love that's out there. So it's even bigger than that. And it means that unconditional is that there is no conditions there. So whatever you did on earth to others, you still will have that love. That doesn't mean that you can just go out there and do all the things that can hurt others, because if you go having your life review, you will see what you did to others, and you will see it from a distinct place or distinct point of view. It's not only your own point of view, but it's also the point of view of the person that you interacted with. So you become, that's what people say, you become the other person, and you feel what you did to that other person. So that really goes far. And I think no one could have thought of this before the NDEs were studied, that you become the other to feel what you do to others. And life reviews and this kind of thing is being taught and told over and over again by NDEers. So they say this consistently. And I find that the most compelling sort of, well, it's not really evidence, but indication that we are all one. Because how else can I feel how you feel? I cannot be in your head.
That's true.
When I'm dead, I can be in your head because I am your head through the source.
You know, what you said just now about how they struggle to describe it gave me a memory of when I first did Bufo alvarius, which is from the frog. And that is what we call the father, and it works with the heart chakra. So the fourth chakra. And that is described as unconditional love. So when you smoke it, you get the feeling within 10 seconds. And what you said about them, that brought back the memory of when I first experienced it. It was this love so deep, so profound, that it was scary in the beginning. And I remember the shaman came over to work with me, because when you experience such love that I could feel the connectiveness to the earth, to the planets, to the actual water, I felt like it was me and I was it. And it was
also
scary.
Water and plants, and so not only other people. Yeah, water you can feel that's what NDEs say as well.
Yeah, so you brought back that memory of me where the first time it was like, so now that you brought back that memory, is like, it's difficult to put in words how I felt, but I just felt this connectiveness. Like, I know how that feels because it is me and I'm it. And then it started to make me realize, well, hold on a minute, even the air is me, right? So everything is me. And it felt really warm and fuzzy, not to sound cheesy, but that's the only way I could describe it. Whereas like, this place is so nice. I'm like, wow, why would I want to come back, you know?
Yeah, that's it.
So,
yeah, but you had to come back.
yeah, because it only lasted like 15 minutes, right? But you just triggered
but
that
also
memory.
near-death experiences say they had to come back again because otherwise we can't speak with them. If they don't come back, they're really dead.
This is true.
Yeah, so they say they are told to go back. Sometimes they want to go back themselves, and then they come back. Yeah.
Okay. So many NDEs say they felt more real during the experience than in the physical life.
Yes.
What does that suggest about the nature of consciousness?
Oh, that's a good question. What does it? I refer them back to some of the people saying that on the other side, things are more real than it is here. And that's also said so often. So the experience on the other side is the real thing. And what we are doing here is just shadow play. It is short and it's small and it's insignificant. I remember talking to a woman who had she had a near-death experience. It was a nice experience, and then she was told she had to go back to Earth, to her body, and she said, "No, I don't want to go back." And that's what most of them say. But then they say, well, you have a task. There's a reason for you here. There's things you have to do. It doesn't have to be very big always. I mean, we don't have to be CEO of a big company or so, but we can also just small things are very important as well. So this person was told to go back, and she said, it was shown to her that it was just a few seconds in the other time, because there is no time on the other side. So she thought, well, okay, I'll go back, and then before I know, I will be back again here because I die in a natural way. And then she was in her bed, hooked up to all these machines and with intubation in her nose. And she thought, well, this is not the way I want to be. So that's not what she thought. But the thing that I want to say is that from the other point of view, from the other side, it is all very short. Our lives are short. It's just over within a second. It's time doesn't have a meaning on the other side. I don't know how to see that or how to explain that, but that's what people say. There is no time on the other side, and I love this one best. It's time is all there at the same time. So time is there all at the same time. So your birth is still there, and your death is also there already, perhaps, in a way.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling. I find those things mind-boggling if I think about that.
Because the thing is that they say that time doesn't exist, but man made watches. So in order to count time, and that everything exists in the now, and you have to use a higher mind to comprehend that statement. Because
but still, you know that you were there as a child, so that was a long time. Well, the word
this
time
is
ago.
It. So what happens now is that I don't know if it's because of our third dimensional thinking and we think only linearly, because exactly what you said. So you can remember something because when you were a child, you did X, Y, or Z, or this happened to you. So now as an adult, you can say, well, because we measure time based on watches, we can say, well, 30 years ago, X, Y, Z happened to me. But then now is like the thought process, well, if time doesn't really exist, how do you explain or document or give a relation to that experience over the transcourse of your life, because you are clearly an adult now when you were a child? So then is time a concept where it just passes and is just how it is in terms of the sun rises, the sun falls, the moon rises, the moon falls? Or is it just a different way of looking at it? Because I find that a very fascinating thought process in terms of time. Or maybe we're just looking at it from a wrong way, where it's just about the experience. So you can, instead of measuring in time, you just measure the experiences that you have. So it just maybe to look at it from a different perspective is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it seems like, well, some NDEs say that time was made, well, our environment, so the world and the universe, were made with time for this purpose of having this experience. That's how they say it. And interestingly, I spoke one of the quantum mechanics experts spoke at our conference, European African conference, or it was a symposium on the 1st of November. And she said, she's a quantum mechanics person. So she said, time in quantum mechanics is not there. So you can look at the whole of time as a loaf of bread. So it's like you slice it or dice it there. And that's how everything is. So you have the world in several layers of the bread. And interestingly, one of the NDEs, without knowing this, she said something like, well, after my experience, I could look through time. Time is like something that I can play with sometimes. She has no control over it, because she sees things that happen in the future. And those appear to be correct, because what she does, if she sees things in the future, she sends herself an email with what she saw, because if you do that, there is a timestamp there on your email. So you can always say, well, I wrote it yesterday and it happened today. So that's good proof. It's nice. And she said, well, I don't know how to look at time, but it's like a cake. So she uses the word cake, a layered cake, and you can slice it. And I thought that was nice that the quantum mechanics person used a loaf of bread as an example, but I still don't understand it. I mean, I'm just a three-dimensional person with time, and I'm abiding by time. I have to be here in time and have to do this in time. So it's interesting.
I find it very interesting as well. A very interesting thought experiment, to be fair. So some near-death experiences are deeply distressing rather than blissful. From your research, what purpose do these experiences seem to serve?
Well, there are indeed a number of, it's a subset, it's a smaller number of NDEs, but because people don't want to, well, if you have a distressing NDE, you don't go around and say, wow, I had a distressing NDE with hell and demons, and so it's a subset at this moment. And a part of that subset is only that people don't like things like the flight through the tunnel is like something they don't like because it goes too fast, or things like that, or they hover in a dark environment that is loving, but they find it like, yeah, there's nothing there. But there is a very small subset of NDEs that talk about devilish kind of creatures and stuff like that. So it exists. We cannot ignore it. But we know now that you cannot say that people who have been bad, and bad is difficult to define in any case because it's morally connotated. So if suppose we can say that someone is bad, that person will have a distressing NDE, and that if people have been nice all the time or they haven't done very strange bad things, they will always have a blissful NDE. You cannot say that, because there are people, and in my book I have a number of cases that have been bad in our view because they have killed a lot of people. One case of that, and this person had a blissful NDE. In his NDE, though, he had a life review, and he saw all the kills he made, and he saw it from the perspective of the person he killed, but not only of that person, but also the relatives and the children of those persons. And he said that was really difficult to go through. I didn't like that at all. And so that's the deep point in his NDE. But otherwise, it was blissful. There was abundance of love there. On the other side, in my book, I have a few people that I take as an example that were common, nothing special. They didn't kill any people, and they had this distressing NDE. So there must be another reason for these NDEs to be there. And the idea that we have now is that it's based on things that pop up in from our collective conscious, or that pop up from our own fears and our own past. And one of these people that I have in the book, she sort of, and I heard others as well, that because they were so afraid of hell and purgatory, or they were afraid of attracting AIDS, or they were very judgmental about prostitution, they had those aspects in their NDE, and those were the distressing elements in that NDE. But having said that, I want to stress also that most of those NDEs turn nice. So they turn into a blissful one. And that's why I believe that eventually we all go back to this source. And there are a few NDEs who have really heard that in their near-death experience. One of them said, I heard explicitly, it was explicitly told to me, there is no hell and there's no purgatory. So I can just tell you what I hear from NDEs. So in my opinion, distressing NDEs can happen to anyone, but they don't last. Eventually they will evaporate, and most of the time they go away when you think of love, or when you start praying. There are cases where people have been praying and then it changed, or where they, and it doesn't matter which religion you are in, and that some people just started meditating. I don't know how you meditate when you're outside your body. But anyway, this guy did meditation before, and he said when I was meditating, when I was calming down, then things changed, and the darkness went away and started into being purple and then being lighter. And he said the feeling that I had of someone pointing a gun on my face fell away. I can just tell you what I hear from people. Those are real quotes. And there are no guns on the other side, I can tell you.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had to name one uncomfortable truth about how humanity lives today that NDEs consistently reveal, what would it be?
Materialism. That's materialism, because how people come back from their NDE is with the knowledge that having more money or a bigger car or diamonds or gold or power is not what it's all about. That's not important. What is important is how you experience life and do it in a way that you add love to the universe. Because we have free will. That's what I hear from NDEs. We have free will. We can do whatever we want to do within limits. I mean, I will never, if I would want to be a singer, I wouldn't be able to because I don't have that nice voice. So in limits, we have a free will. And with your free will, you can choose. You can choose to do various things. You can choose to be nice, and you can choose to be sour, or you can choose to be nasty to others. It's a choice as well. As an example, one of the people that I interviewed had multiple medical problems, and even to the point that she had to have this colonoscopy. I don't know.
Colonoscopy, something like that.
Yeah, that you have your intestines go out not from the normal side, but from the side. Yeah, it's
colonoscopy.
awful.
Yeah, colonoscopy.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So if she had that and many other things, and she said, I could sit down and be very sour and be very nasty to people because I was unhappy. But I could also, within what I could do, be nice to other people and add love to the world. And she, in her near-death experience, she saw that was indeed the question. That was the choice she had. But we all have that choice.
Yeah, this is true. We always have a choice on how we act and react. And the thing is that when you actually think about it, it's all in our power, because if you choose to act in a certain way, you're going to get back that response. So if someone says something to you and you become aggressive, then most likely that person will become aggressive back to you. So they're just giving you back what you've given them. So this is why it's important for us to realize that, what we emit in the universe comes back to us as, energy just attracts to other energy, So if you don't want to have certain types of reactions, don't give those reactions. But the irony is that human beings, we complain when people do things to us, and we fail to realize that most of the time we are the ones that are actually causing that ourselves, because just like you said, we're all connected. In reality, we're doing it to ourselves. So while we would think that we were doing something to someone, because I am you and you are me, in reality, I'm doing it to you. So you give it back to me. You're just like, I don't want this. I give it back to you. And then we humans, we get upset because someone did something to us, failing to realize that we're the ones that did it to ourselves, right? So
yeah. And also our thoughts, we create with our thoughts as well. That's what I understand. So what you create and what you send out, you'll get back.
Correct.
That's the idea. That's what you just said. That's exactly what you just said.
Correct. So guys, we can take a very, very short break here to say, if this conversation is challenging how you think about life, death, or the people you love, please share this episode, not to promote a podcast, but because someone in your life may be quietly afraid of death, grief, or loss. This conversation could genuinely change how they live right now. With that being said, give a like, leave a comment with your biggest insight so far, and help this message reach the people who need to hear it. Follow us on Instagram at Adriano_246, at The Conscious Man 7 Podcast, and Todd Cave on Facebook to keep in contact with us. Don't forget to check out our sponsor of the show, The Kembo, at thekembo.com, to get yourself some orgonite pyramids, Tower Busters, and some cool jewelry that generate orgone energy, which is the life source energy. Use coupon code CM7 to get 10% off your order. The link is in the description below. Now back to Bob. So some NDEs report verifiable out-of-body observations later confirmed as accurate. From your research, how significant are these cases?
I think they are very, very important because they give circumstantial evidence that near-death experiences are real. So they are no fairy tales. And it's very important stuff, and it's being researched as well. And you mentioned that I was a board member of the International Association of Near-Death Experiences, and that my book was also published by IANDS. But if you mention this, I need to show you another book. That's The Self Does Not Die. And that's published also by the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And it contains hundreds of these stories. And I'll explain that to the listeners as well. Imagine that you have a near-death experience. What happens then is that you leave your body, and sometimes people for a short time stay around. They can see what is happening. They can see the accident, or they can see the operation room where the doctors are working. And sometimes they have a story there. They see something that what the doctors talked about, or what the nurses did, or the medical instruments that they used. And then later on, when they come back again, after they have their near-death experience, they can tell what they've seen. And then it is important that it's being independently confirmed by others. So independent confirmation is important there. And we have many of those stories, as I said in that book, that shows you that your consciousness can be outside your body, because if your body is out, if you are under anesthesia, and you cannot do anything, you cannot see, sometimes the eyes are even taped shut, and the ears are plugged with earpods, things that
earplugs.
Earplugs with sound, with harsh sounds, because then there's actually one case there who she had earplugs in with that emits 100 decibel sounds. That's very loud.
Very loud.
Very loud. And they did that in order to monitor her brain activity. If she would hear it, then it would show up on the medical equipment that registers brain activity. So in those cases, even in those cases, people can hear and oversee what the operation was, and later explicitly and detailed can tell what they saw. That shows you that your consciousness can be outside your body, because how else can they have such a clear view of what is going on while their body is out? And that's the first category of veridical observation, so verifiable out-of-body experiences. The other one is, because this only shows you that your consciousness can be outside your body. The other category is when they are in the otherworldly environment, so in heaven, if you want to call it like that, and have meaningful conversations there, meaningful communication. There are cases, and I'll just give you briefly one case that's also in my book, where people have conversations that later can be independently confirmed to be true, the information they got. In this case, it was a woman who had a difficulty with her lungs, and she had her near-death experience. She goes to the other side. There she meets deceased relatives, and one of them presents itself as a baby boy and says to her, "Remember how I look like?" remember how I'm dressed? And because I'm your brother, I died before you were born. And then she says, well, I don't have a brother. And then he said, just go to your father because you need to go back. Go to him and tell how I look like. And she does that. And the father is surprised because they never spoke about the daughter they had before him, because it died very early, in a day or so, or maybe even quicker. But they didn't want to talk about it because it was so painful for them, and what would it add for her? And there she was, and she said, I have a brother. You never told me anything about him. So that shows you, and there are more of these cases, that shows you as circumstantial evidence that there's this otherworldly environment. The point with all these kind of research is that it's strictly seen not scientific, because to be scientific, you need to be able to reproduce it. And it's strange to do a near-death experience again. I don't know how to picture that. So that's not possible. You cannot do that. It's immoral to ask this lady, well, we'll make you dead again, and then see what we can get out of that. So,
true.
No.
So with all that you said just now, what does that imply about the assumption that the brain creates consciousness?
And that is a wrong idea. It's an idea that we always had, because when the brain is dead, we can't talk to the person anymore. But apparently from all these stories, it comes clear that your consciousness can be outside your body, can be somewhere else, and continues living even though the body is out. And of course, again, that's where we started with, of course, when people are really dead, we don't speak with them. So we don't really know where they are. But these cases that I just gave you are kind of strong, I think, to give some circumstantial evidence that your consciousness continues or is outside your body, and that this otherworldly environment does exist.
Well, yeah, because, skeptics often say that NDEs are hallucinations caused by a dying brain. And I think what you've described are aspects of the NDE research that remain unexplainable by this theory, because how is it possible for that lady that you described to meet her brother, go back to her parents and ask them if she had a brother, for them to confirm yes? Okay, there's no scientific evidence because, like you said, it has to be reproducible. So one could say, well, she hallucinated it. But then if she was never told about her brother, how would she be able to go back and ask the question that she has a brother, which forces us to say, well, okay, there are just some things about this phenomenon that we just have to accept are anomalies. We don't know how, why, from where it's coming from, but for sure, the current model of thinking can't explain it, which means that the current model of thinking has limitations. So we have to be totally intellectually honest and say that maybe we need to think of it with another mind, right? And think beyond this realm, because clearly that consciousness, that information is coming from a non-physical 3D realm. So it forces us to consider, even the biggest skeptic, that there has to be something beyond this plane,
I also want to express or tell something about hallucinations. Hallucinations are really different from near-death experiences because hallucinations are chaotic. There's no real storyline in them. That's why they are hallucinations. And these, so near-death experience, it has logic, or there's a storyline in it. And there are real observations. So that's the distinction that I make. And the interesting thing is that there was a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience himself because he had meningitis. And before he had this, and that's the guy his name is Eben Alexander. Before he had his near-death experience, he was just a materialist in the sense that he believed that the brain produces the consciousness, and when the brain is dead, there's nothing there. And then he was having his near-death experience, and he was both hallucinating and having a near-death experience. And he noticed that there was a distinct difference between both of them. The hallucinations were chaotic, as I said, and there's no storyline. And the NDE, there was a real logic, there was communication, there was sensible, everything was much more real than the hallucinations. And then after he had this, he started believing in all this. So now he's on the other side now. I mean, he's not dead, but he's on the other side of science, to say it like that.
So talking about science, what does science risk losing if it refuses to seriously investigate consciousness beyond the brain?
Yeah, that's a good question. There is, it has to do with reputation. I think doctors, if they start talking about near-death experiences or spirituality, then they are afraid. I know that also from doctors that people don't believe them, that they don't have any credit anymore, that their credibility is lost. So that's why they hold on to the old paradigm. And I think we need, the only way the new paradigm can be enforced is when the people that believe in the old paradigm are dead.
I find that fascinating in general, because if I actually think from a different side, where I think that if doctors and scientists were leaning more into that, I think it would actually give them more credibility, because they would actually most likely be able to produce the physical evidence to back up the theory. Because what would happen is that their curiosity to try to prove it physically would probably bring breakthroughs in medicine, science, research, even going as far as like energy in terms of levitation, all these kind of things, because we're talking about things not from this world. And I think they're the right people to actually say, hey, even though we're doctors and scientists and engineers, etc., here's the proof to back up these wild claims, because I think they're well placed for it.
Yeah, but there are doctors, there are exceptions, of course, but those are exceptions that tend to go that way. But there is a specific group of scientists that are really doing very interesting work, and those are the quantum mechanics people, because in quantum mechanics they discover things that are so strange that if you take two particles far apart, they still move in the same way. They are still having a connection, things like that. So that's also what NDEs say. There's a connection between all and everything. And in quantum mechanics, they seem to say funny things like that as well.
Yeah. So, I think we are on the cusp of something really phenomenal coming from next year, because conversations like these, we would be laughed out of town 10 years, 15 years ago as people that just consume smack, because, our levels of mind were a lot lower. And I think it's fascinating what they're doing on the quantum level, quantum entanglement, and showing that, you know, especially even with like the observer effect, because if you don't observe it, it actually, well, according to them, it's not real. It doesn't happen. You know, like if the tree doesn't make a sound because when it falls in the forest, because there's no one there to observe it, right? And then that the consciousness interacts and reacts when it's observed. So, you know, it behaves differently. So I find it completely fascinating.
Me too. I'm fascinated by everything the science does. Also, when they look into the stars and go very far away, it's mind-boggling.
Very,
something else.
It's true. Across cultures and religions, NDEs show both variation and striking similarities. From your perspective, what appears universal and what seems culturally shaped?
Okay, that's a good question. It's the thing is that what is consistently told by NDEers all over the world is that this unconditional love, as I said, and also that we are connected. What is different is that in NDE sometimes people see also Jesus, so that's a very religious person. And he has a meaning in those NDEs. So those are NDEs mainly of people with a Christian background. But there's also stories about people with adhering to Islam that see other deities from their religion, or Buddhism or Hinduism. Those stories are there. So that's culturally colored, I would say. I don't know if Jesus and all these other important religious figures from other religions really exist. Why not? Probably, or they show up in those NDEs. So I don't know. I know that, for instance, I was brought up a Roman Catholic, as you know. I think that Jesus was a very nice person. He was much nicer than all the priests and bishops and whoever came after, because they just
facts.
They did it really wrong. I think they changed it. And they raped the words that Jesus gave us. To give you an example there, do you know what original sin is? Original sin is the sin of Adam and Eve that sticks to everyone, and that's why we all die. And the only salvation there is when we are baptized in the name of Christ. The whole concept of original sin is nowhere in the Bible. It's not in the Old Testament, so the Jewish scriptures. There's no original sin there, and Jesus did never speak about original sin. It was just manufactured 400 years after Jesus died by Saint Augustine. Just to give you an example.
Well, the thing is, right, is what most religious people, and this is, I can speak for the Abrahamic faiths because I've studied those the most, is that most of the beliefs of the followers of the Abrahamic faiths have beliefs based on what they're told and not what is actually written. So you have this strange phenomenon of adherents to these religions believe in what their priests, the imams, and their rabbis tell them without actually reading for themselves, researching, doing any sort of investigation, and just believing hook, line, and sinker that these things are. And when you have conversations with these religious people, who I call zealots, that's my personal opinion, because
mine too, yeah.
and you challenge them and you bring the receipts, to them, it is almost like an electric shock to them. Zzz, 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 zzz. They don't know how to handle it because they've never seen this information, right? And
yeah, but that also applies to the other religions. It's I think it is it covers all the religions. There's zealots everywhere.
Yeah, and the thing about it is that I asked 3 of them, both like Seventh-day Adventists, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So I asked those 4, if religion is so important to you, you think it's the most important thing, why don't you research this thing to prove to yourself the things that you're being told are true? And almost all of them said to me, Todd, it's just about belief and believing. I said, but the word belief means that you think the thing is true without actual evidence. So if it is so important to you, why don't you seek the evidence yourself so that when people like me challenge you, you can say, no, Todd, here are the receipts. X, Y, and Z, it is because it's in the book. But the problem is that people like me who go and do the research, bring the receipts, bring the heat, bring the thought-provoking questions, get labeled phobes-ist and all of those made-up words because, Islamophobe and is not even a real word because phobe comes from the word phobia, which means an irrational fear, which means that if you're an Islamophobe or Christian phobe, it means that you have an irrational fear of a person who is an adherent to a certain belief system. So when you even bring those words to them because, they don't understand the meanings of words, they can't bring answers and they just shout and run away and just call you names, And I find it fascinating because something that would be so in your tenet of life, you don't do any research and just believe what you're told, So,
but that has been going on for millennia. That's how people work. Also in in ancient Egyptian, they had that too. And in China, it is I think something human. I think it's also part of a power struggle to make people do what you want them to do, and use the afterlife for this. And I find that difficult because if you really study near-death experiences, you know that everyone is loved unconditionally beyond their wildest dreams. And why would you tell something different? Why would you say if you're not baptized in Christ, you will not go to heaven? What a ridiculous thing to say.
I couldn't agree more because it is all about guilt, shame, and fear. And these are the tools that are used to control humanity,
And this also brought them in problems themselves. It's interesting because what would you do with Abraham and Moses? They were not baptized in Christ, so they cannot go to heaven.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, but this is really, those things have been thought over and they came with a solution. So they cannot go to heaven, but they cannot go to hell because they were chosen by God. So they thought of this other kind of state where these people would be into, and that would be the limbo state. And also children that had done nothing wrong and they died before they were baptized. Where do they go? They cannot go to hell, but they cannot go to heaven because they haven't been baptized. They also go to this limbo state. There's this environment in heaven where that's a limbo environment. That's what they think. They thought of that. So it's not real. That's not the case, but they thought of that, and that's where they go. They make problems for themselves.
I'm telling you, right? Like, I didn't even think of that, and that is so true. Because what do you do with them? They're just like a bag of deplorables or a bag of unwanteds, like
Yeah.
what do you do with them,
Yeah. And we all go to heaven. We all go there. That's my firm belief after talking to so many of these people.
Okay. You've noted parallels between NDE insights and the core teachings of major religions. Where do NDEs confirm those teachings, and where do they quietly challenge them?
That's difficult to that's a whole program in itself, but I'll give you an example here where I just, well, the conclusion that I drew was that the essence of each of the religions will be found in near-death experiences, but not the other way around. Not all the essences of near-death experiences is found in each of the religions. And I need to give you an example there, because in Hinduism, for instance, there are many gods. Maybe you know that. There are hundreds or millions of gods, but actually they all wind up in three gods. There are three main gods that are the super gods, so to speak. But even one of those gods in one of the scriptures said, actually, we are all one. All these three gods are one. So it's actually a monotheism too. And then it comes, this God, Vishnu, said, this one God, Brahma, can be found in every living creature. So not only human people, but also in men, also in animals. So what was said here is that God resides in every living creature. That you will hear from NDEers, but that you will not hear from the three religions that you mentioned. So Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They see God as a person outside of us, because he will come and judge over us and give a judgment on the final day. So that's an example.
Okay, see. So do near-death experiences provide evidence of life after death, or do they point to something even more radical about reality itself?
I think both.
Okay.
I think they give indication that there's life after death. And I also think that they give an indication that there is a reality that we cannot see from our perspective, because they say that this other world is all around us. It is around the corner. It's actually here with us, but we cannot see it. That's how they say it. They really give the impression that it's all around us, and also that it's more real than what we have here. And if you come to speak about dimensions, I think that maybe this otherworldly environment has more dimensions. So we have three dimensions, three space dimensions, and one time dimension. But maybe on the other side, there are more other dimensions. Maybe they drop time, as we discussed before, and they have more other dimensions. And I just want to make people aware that if you have more dimensions, you cannot understand how that works. Because just do an experiment in your head that there are on your table, that there are flat people walking around on your table. They are not there, but just imagine they are there. They are two-dimensional and they have time. Now, one of them pops out and sees us sitting and sees volume. They see height. They don't understand that because they don't have that. Their mindset is not with height. So when this person or this creature has to go back to the others and has to tell what he went through, he cannot tell what it is, because how to explain a third dimension in a world where there's only two? It's impossible. Where do you get the words from? There are no words in the two-dimensional environment for the third dimension. So from our perspective, with 3 dimensions, there are no words for the fourth, for the next dimension that we have, if there is one. So we cannot talk about that. But that's interesting that science is already talking about more dimensions, because relativity theory is something that works and quantum mechanics is something that works. But if you want to align them, there are string theories that need to use more dimensions in order to align both theories to each other. And that's interesting. I think science is really going in the right direction, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Is like I was saying before, is almost like you have to use a different level of mind to be able to conceptualize something now on a different dimension or density, because like you're rightly saying, and I like to explain it this way to people so they can try to get a good idea. So if you take water and you put it in a freezer, it becomes ice, and the molecules are vibrating, but just very slowly. When you take it out the freezer, the molecules vibrate faster, so it becomes liquid. And when you heat that liquid, it turns to steam. It's the same element, but because you can't see the steam doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it is very much like energy. We know energy is real because we can feel it, but because we can't see it, taste it, touch it, or smell it, doesn't mean it's not real. Another example, the wind. The wind is real. We can see the leaves on the trees moving, but because we can't see physically the color of the wind or the essence of the wind, that doesn't mean it's not real. We feel it because we get cooler. We see the trees moving. So we are very limited in our ability to conceptualize things that are not seen. And I think
same applies to love. You can't see love, but it's there.
Correct.
If you love someone, then it's not something that you can see, but it's an emotion that's there.
And basically you feel it. So I think
Yes.
I think we're using the wrong senses to try to interpret things of the unseen, where I think is more felt. And then because it's felt, it sort of like resonates, and then you kind of are able to tap out of everything that is just solid, which isn't really solid because it's all moving, you know? So after an NDE, people often report dramatic shifts in values and priorities. What changes show up most consistently?
Well, the thing that changes consistently is the different view of life, especially when it comes to money and power, that decreases in attention or in value for them, and other things like being in nature, having good relations, being together with others. That increases, and people change in that sense. There's very significant after effects of near-death experiences. This is one of the one of the noteworthy ones. Another one is also the fear of death falls away. I think that's almost 100% score in research. That people lose their fear of death because they have seen that it continues. So, and then there are also other effects, like some people become more mediumistic or psychic. Sometimes they can see through time, the example that I gave. And then there are also funny side effects like interference with electricity. There's a lot of people with a near-death experience that say, if I wear a watch, it's an electronic watch, it stops when I wear it. And if I put it aside, it starts working again. And I don't know why. And it's said over and over again. So that's a side effect that must be real. And then I hope I don't sit in an airplane with someone who has had a near-death experience, because I hope all the engines and the electricity keep on going. So that there's a funny story in my book also about a man who had a near-death experience, and children in the neighborhood asked him to just run through the street, because every time he would pass under a lantern, the light would go out, and if he would pass it, it would switch on again. And so imagine how the whole street would go.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Okay. Many experiencers say their fear of death disappears entirely. What does their perspective teach us about fear while we're still alive?
Oh, that's a very good question too, because what I understand from NDEs is that fear is sort of countervailing power. It reduces your real power. So, but we all know fear. I mean, I don't have to explain you or any of your listeners what fear is. We all suffer from some kind of fear, but it's that's what I understand. It will limit you in your abilities, in your total potential. If you are afraid, if you live with fear. And I have fear of flying. That's why I mentioned this example with electricity interference with that. But I've reduced that. That's the thing. It is a countervailing power. It goes against what you want to. So best is to try to drop fears. Fear of life is one of them. You know, every person's life is important. That's what I understand from NDEs. And there's no one unimportant. And if your task would be over, you go. But as long as you are still valuable here and you have something to do, you will remain here. So everyone is important. Also, the beggar in the street. And it's not only the kings and the CEOs that are seemingly important. They are just as important as anyone else, any one of the listeners.
You know, I find fear fascinating because fear, I think, is very much misunderstood. And because fear, when you really look at it, it can really help you to grow if you look at it from a different side, where the thing that you fear is actually the thing or the area or the part of yourself that you need to work on at that particular time. Because in reality, fear means false evidence appearing real. Now, in 99% of these situations, unless there's like a wild animal or
but that's what you say. It's false evidence. So that's important to hold on to.
Yes, it's false evidence appearing real. And the thing about fear is that it is so debilitating. I call fear the cousin of death, because fear causes all new possibilities to die. It is the killer of dreams and goals, right? Fear. And I think that we need to have a better relationship with fear where, okay, if this is something you fear, you have the experience, you have this thing going on inside of you, but it doesn't determine who you are. And if we look at it, we can say, okay, well, this thing is making me afraid. What can I learn from that? Well, okay, it means then that I need to confront this thing, or is coming from a place of unresolved trauma, XYZ, or is giving you an opportunity to grow and to learn from that situation. So then now the next time that happens, you're like, okay, you know what? I've been here before. I know what this is. Okay, this is not going to debilitate me or cripple me. I'm going to use this and actually stand on it to get to another level, to level up, right? So this is how I tend to look at fear now, as a person that has confronted several fears, still has the experience of fear, but does it regardless, because I know that every time I look at fear down look at it straight in the eyes, I actually realize, you know what, you're not real, you're just false evidence appearing real,
Yeah.
So I think it's
false evidence. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of having a better relationship with fear, so that you can realize, oh, okay, I've done this before. Water off a duck's back. I can do this. Let's see, how can I do things differently in order to improve.
What you actually say is that you appear to agree with me, it holds you back.
Yes,
so
definitely.
If you look it in the eye and you cope with it, or you work through it, then you will improve yourself in one or other way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some NDEs say physical life feels like a temporary classroom. How can people hold that perspective without disengaging from life here?
And then NDEs really, they long back to this other place. So that it's difficult for them to have seen the other side, although they say that's the most wonderful experience that I had in my life. But the fact that they have to continue going on here is something they don't like, because they have seen the wonderful unconditional loving environment with no fear, with no anxiety, with total freedom. So they feel confined here. That's also what people say when they have to go back to their body. They say the body is so confining, it's so narrow, it's so small, and I barely fit into it. It's like a diver's suit that's too small. So they don't like it, and it's difficult for them to cope with that.
That's fascinating that they say that they find it limiting, in the sense of so it's almost like if the consciousness and the spirit is inside the body, but the body sort of doesn't allow the consciousness to expand. Is that kind of what they're trying to explain?
Yeah, maybe that's what they say. That's one of them said that when they get out of it, like Anita Marjani said that she said, my consciousness expanded so quickly and so big. It was so big that it encompassed everything. I became everything. That's what she said. Those are her real words. And then she had to go back again. And that was difficult, because how would they squeeze that big expanse back into that little body again? She thought it was impossible. One other NDE said they really had to hug me so tight that I could squeeze back into my body. I just give you what they say. It's funny how they make these kind of. There's one whole chapter in my book on how people go back into their body. There's very funny stories there. There's also stories about how they get out of the body, but also about life reviews. There's each of these subjects that we spoke about has their own chapter. That's interesting that you touched upon all these topics.
Yeah, like I said, I find it fascinating because, from a guy that's done a lot of psychedelic experiences, read a lot of books, done a lot of research, I find that I still have many questions. And one of the things that is one of my slogans now is, life is a massive mystery. And I just find this whole experience here now, because the more that I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So the more I know, the more I don't know. And I just have more questions. And it really makes me think from having experiences, because somebody you touched on, you said that from an NDEr's point of view, that when they're over there, it feels more real than here. Now, I have had dreams and I've had experiences with psychedelics that felt much more real than even me talking to you right now, where I had like, see, even to find words, where it's like I had this instant connectivity that it was like instant, whereas like I thought it and it became, and then the experience was so real that when it came back, like I just like, but that felt so real. And I remember once, last ayahuasca ceremony I did, and I was showing something, and I asked the voice, is this thing that you were telling me and showing me is real? And he said to me, Todd, what is real? And it stumped me, because I was like, you know what is real, you know? So it just seems like it's just like levels of consciousness that are, you just have to be felt. I think that is not a matter of seeing, it's about feeling, you know? So we'll get you on this one. Based on everything you've studied, if someone truly believed that love is what ultimately matters, how would their relationships, decisions, and daily life change starting tomorrow?
Oh, that's difficult. Well, if they didn't do that before and they do it now, their life will change, because if you change, your life will change, and the people you attract will change. So that would be the answer.
Okay. I am a firm believer in love, and I think that there are only two energies, love and fear. People say hate, but hate comes from fear, because
yeah, I see that as well. That's how I see it too.
Because fear is crippling, and fear literally causes you to stay in your comfort zone. It causes the place where dreams and goals go to die, and it doesn't allow expansion, risk taking, believing in oneself, you know, hard work, discipline, courage. Those things all come from love, you know. So if we really want to change the world, we need to change ourselves. So we love ourselves first so that we can love others, because I always say you can't give someone something that you don't already have. And that is mostly my message that I repeat weekly, and I teach to my clients and all of that stuff.
I like that. Yeah, that's very good.
Bob, it has been a very awesome conversation today.
I thought so too.
And I think we've probably given my listeners more questions than answers, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because I think that the more we question, the more we open ourselves to learning and receiving. And I think that is the paradigm shift that is needed now, where we accept that they're not necessarily consonants and they're constants, and things are in a flow, you know, it's like a wave. And I think that this is the new consciousness that's coming in. And I think that NDEs shed a little bit light on that way of thinking, that level of consciousness, that way of being, and to make us actually sit down amongst, you know, in a quiet place and ask ourselves, who am I? What am I? And where did they come from? And I think that these are three important questions that every human needs to ask themselves, because the world is ever changing, and we're going to see some fantastic things from 2026. And this podcast is going to cover it all. So with that being said, Bob, please tell the lovely folks at the Conscious Man 7 where they can find you, anything that you offer, if you know, so we can find out everything about Bob, plug your book and all of that great stuff.
Well, it's only that this is the book, Impressions of Near-Death Experiences. It is available on Amazon. And if people want to see more about me, they can go to my website, which is bobcoppes.com. And Coppes is written like COPPES.com. And otherwise, go to IANDS.org. So IANDS, I think, International Association for Near-Death Studies.org. very nice website with a lot of information about this topic. Very interesting.
Okay, and everything, Bob, will be in the description of this podcast.
Oh, wonderful.
So
it was really enjoyable to be with you. Wonderful questions, and it's really awesome to have been on your show. Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome, Bob. And guys, so we're coming up to the Christmas season, and probably when this episode airs, we probably will be in the new year. And that is the time where people set their New Year's resolutions, but miserably fail to get into shape. So if you would like to get into the best shape of your life, you would like to grow mentally, spiritually, and physically, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook. Send me a message. Let's have a chat and let's see if you're a good fit for the Compound Body Training Army, because we are touching, moving, and inspiring people from all over the world to get into the best shape of their life, to work on themselves and be the change that they want to see. If you are on a spiritual journey, or you would like to start a spiritual journey and you would like some help removing some fears and traumas, I can help you to get some magic mushrooms. So if you would like to overcome some fears, traumas, connect to your subconscious mind, and maybe get some of the answers to some of these meaningful questions about yourself, hit me up on my Instagram at Adriano_246 or my name Todd Cave on Facebook, and I will help you to get some magic mushrooms. If you would like to support this podcast, you can do that by visiting our merch store. We have some cool tank tops, hoodies, shirts, and sweats. Link will be in the description of our Amazon store called Todd and Me. And if you do grab any of our merch, take a picture of yourself, send me a message or an email, and tag me on Instagram or Facebook, and I will either shout you on the podcast or I will post you on my story, because we are becoming a movement and we're more than just a podcast now. And your support helps the podcast to grow, to do some research and get some cool guests like Bob to come on the show and share some awesome information like this. Also, if you listen to this podcast on one of the podcast platforms and you just don't like ads, but you would like to support the podcast and get away from the ad experience, you can become a member of our Patreon or locals community. And for a few bucks a month, you can get ad-free podcasts, you can get early releases of the podcast, exclusive content, and you can get direct access to me because I reply to messages there first, just like I do with all of my clients that I coach. So link to my Patreon or locals community pages will also be in the description of this podcast. And also, don't forget to visit the sponsor of our store, of our podcast, The Kembo, at thekembo.com, to get yourself some cool pyramids, tower busters, and some cool jewelry as well that produce the orgone energy, which is the life source energy. And you would also beat those nasty EMFs and to help combat those chemtrails, So guys, if this conversation opens something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone you love, because every near-death experience Bob has studied points to the same truth, that how we love each other here matters more than anything else. Conversations like this don't spread through algorithms alone. They're spread when people choose to pass them on. Leave a like and comment below wherever you're listening with your biggest takeaways from this episode. Once again, you'll find all links to Bob, everything Bob, will be in the description below. Make sure you subscribe, as that will help the channel to grow. Bob, many thanks for being a guest on the Conscious Man 7 podcast. It was a really awesome conversation. I truly enjoyed it, and you've given me more questions, and which is, I think, a good thing, because it creates the space to learn and to grow. So
thank you.
I also want to thank all of you that are listening for giving me your time today, as we aren't just a podcast, we are a movement, and we are the Conscious Man 7 family. This was another episode of the Conscious Man 7 podcast, the place where we go beyond the veil in search of the truths they hide from you, to help you reclaim your power and step into the truest version of yourself. You are the help that you've been looking for. So remember, folks, keep smiling, keep shining, and keep being the change you want to see. Speak to you soon. Cheers and namaste.